And so his compassion, his wisdom, and his telling others to be independent, that his experience is not going to enlighten them. They have their own ignorances that they have to overcome. And what he did to overcome his is not necessarily what's going to make me enlightened. That my enlightenment is my own experience, and he's merely a guide. He's merely offering inspiration and wisdom and the things that philosophy. And he goes into many other philosophies too, Hinduism, Buddhism, Christianity. He is not limited to one thing. But he stresses that we're all on an individual path to enlightenment, and that there isn't one way, and that his way is not necessarily our way.
And he has such a beautiful sense of finding the beauty in people that all of a sudden you see through his eyes.
He has a way of encouraging people to really trust themselves. Yeah, I found an agelessness in him. He was like a child with his openness.
Munishri asks for nothing on blind faith. He says, question, and through experience, prove it to yourself.
When I first heard him, what moved me the most about him was his utter simplicity. He seemed to speak so from the heart. And when I heard him, it was like a breath of fresh air. I fell in love with his beauty and his sincerity and such a sweet, fine nature. And I still find that it's not so much what Muni says, but what he is.
Friends, let us not cling to any religion, dogma or ideology. Rather, let us say, I want to conquer myself, my own self. Let us begin our journey into self with peace and meditation.
Seekers on a trip to India to continue their journey into self. They come from all parts of the United States and range in age from 18 to 68. Their leader is Gurudev Sri Chitrabhanu, lovingly called Muni by his followers. At the invitation of the Temple of Understanding, Muni, one of the heads of the Jain religion in India, first came to a spiritual summit conference at Harvard University in 1971. His charm and charisma immediately attracted a following, and in the interest of seeing East and West learn from each other, Muni stayed. Now his students meet regularly at a meditation center they founded in Manhattan, and each year Muni takes a small group of followers to India on a trip to awareness, visiting and meditating in some of the extraordinary Jain temples seldom seen by tourists. Mount Abu, one of the 7 wonders of India, is one of them. Mount Abu is not one temple but several, atop a hill near a small village north of Bombay. At the same time that the great Gothic cathedrals were being built in Europe, these Jain temples were being built in India. They're entirely of white marble, and carved with a delicacy and richness of ornament that has never been surpassed anywhere. Shrines to the 24 prophets of the Jain religion. The first, Adinath. The last, Mahavira. Mahavira Swami Nayan Pathdami Bhavatumi.
लभन्ते सद्भक्ताः शिव
सुख समाजं किमु तदा महावीर स्वामी नयन पथगामी भवतु मे.
The ceilings and walls of the temples are decorated with panels showing scenes of Jain mythology. Jainism is concerned with a vision of wholeness, and Muni relates the myths to the forces of the unconscious mind. In each of the 59 cells in the outer walls of the temple, there is an image of a Jaina, or enlightened being. These images are conceived not for idol worship, but as reminders of enlightened beings, and as such an aid to contemplation. The medieval artists delighted in covering every square foot with superlative carvings, even on the ceiling. The word Jain is derived from Jaina, the conqueror or victor. That is, one who has conquered himself. And Jain stressed that self-knowledge, or conquering one's inner enemies, is the true goal of life. There are many similarities between Jainism and Buddhism, but whereas Buddhism spread all over Asia, Jainism remained confined to India, primarily because Jain monks were not allowed to travel abroad. Muni is the first ever to have left his country.
Gujarat, his name was Vimal, and he thought that what to do with money. He had
Jain lay devotees wear a kerchief over their mouth so as not to pollute the atmosphere inside the shrines. They pay homage to the images inside these shrines as a sort of mudra of mental purification. In other words, it helps them to concentrate on their own higher selves.
स्वर्णाभासोऽप्यपगत तनुर्ज्ञान निवहो विचित्रात्माप्येको नृपतिवरसिद्धार्थतनयः.
All of these are on the ceiling.
श्रीमान विगत भवरागोद्भुतगतिः.
And if we give them become beggars. So he invited all the artists to work something. So in that way, he invited 3,000 different artists and workers to work for this temple. Before that, it was an old temple. An image is like a flower before a mirror. The mind reflects what is in front of it and takes on its color. Hence, Jain images are used to remind the worshipper that he too can become an enlightened being.
Ajanta has been acclaimed as one of the wonders of the world ever since its discovery 150 years ago by a British hunter. The 30 rock-hewn caves, cut into the scarp of a cliff, are either chapels or monasteries, hewn from the solid rock 2,000 years ago by Buddhist monks. The sculptures and frescoes recount the life of Buddha and his previous earthly experiences. This belief in reincarnation, in being reborn until one has finally learned all the lessons necessary to reach enlightenment, is basic to both Buddhism and Jainism, but after that they part. For Buddhists do not hypothesize a soul, and Jains believe that everything living has a soul, even the ultimate cells. Ellora's 34 shrines, cut into the living rock, are not exclusively Buddhist, but Jain and Hindu as well, chiseled into perfection between the 4th and 9th centuries A.D. Kailasa Temple has been scooped out by hand from a single rock, 100 by 150 by 90 feet high, with pavilions, courtyards, elephants, and a magnificent tower, a remarkable testimony to the monks who designed and built it. Many of the construction techniques used then are still used in India, with women often bearing a disproportionately large share of the labor.
Mahavira deplored the exploitation of women more than 2,500 years ago. He stressed equal right for all living beings, and his philosophy of non-violence or ahimsa greatly influenced Mahatma Gandhi, who elevated it from a personal belief to a national political creed.
These Indian villages have changed very little since the days of Mahavira and Buddha. Mahavira was born north of Patna, but most of his Indian followers are here in the west and south. Both he and Buddha were born in the lap of luxury, but seeing the poverty and suffering around them, they became disillusioned with affluence. Many American seekers today are motivated by the same reasons. They also come from well-to-do backgrounds and have found that happiness has little or no relationship to material possessions. Another Jain shrine is atop this hill, Shravanabelgala. It seems a natural inclination to build holy places on mountaintops, as though the physical climb were symbolic of the inward climb to enlightenment. Up steps carved in the hard granite, one climbs for 30 or 40 minutes. At the top, a colossal image of Bahubali, a Jain saint, erected in the 10th century. It's 57 feet high, and since it's carved from a single rock, the logistics of its construction still baffle experts. At his feet, the priests carry out a purification ceremony, and the seekers meditate. Jains place great stress on meditation as a means of getting in touch with your deepest self. And perhaps that is one reason for the popularity of Jainism. It's a do-it-yourself religion. Muni has helped the seekers realize that you can't change anything without changing yourself first. And they're willing to accept the physical and psychological rigors involved in study and practice.
If the energy wasted trying to improve the whole world were used to improve oneself, man would reach the crest of greatness.
And when asked, how does one develop love for oneself?
How do we begin to feel love for ourselves? The answer is by serving. When we serve humanity, our heart opens and we cannot help but feel the flow of love.
In an ancient temple, some palm leaf manuscripts, equally ancient. Muni explains that they carry some of the basic tenets of Jainism, such as non-violence or ahimsa.
Ahimsa is not injuring or giving pain to anyone in thought, word, or action.
Understanding ahimsa, of all life on the same frequency. In India, almost every hill is topped with a temple or shrine. In the early morning, the seekers often climb to one of them to increase their understanding of the beliefs of others, and also to practice their own disciplines. For Jainism requires the integration of body, mind, and spirit. It posits no gods or dogma, says God is within, and urges its subjects to reach the state of illumination through the human powers of self-examination and reverence for life.
स्वस्ति श्री चंद्र प्रभः श्री पुष्पदन्तः स्वस्ति स्वस्ति श्री शीतलः श्री श्रेयान् स्वस्ति स्वस्ति श्री वासुपूज्यः श्री विमलः स्वस्ति स्वस्ति श्री अनन्तः श्री धर्मः स्वस्ति.
The seekers spend part of every day trying to reach the God within, and keeping the body in shape through yoga and breathing exercises is also an essential discipline.
स्वस्ति श्री अरनाथः श्री मल्लिः स्वस्ति स्वस्ति श्री मुनिसुव्रतः श्री नमिः स्वस्ति.
Gurudev Chitrabhanu is quite a famous man in India, and everywhere he and his followers are greeted with music and flower malas. They play his poem, The Immortal Song, which has been set to music and is a favorite among Jains.
पवित्र झरनू मुझैया माया करे.
At the monastery where Muni studied for years, a vegetarian meal, for Jains are strict vegetarians, and the performance of a stick dance. This is a special dance, performed by young men in the temple as an expression of their devotion. The village of Palitana is at the base of a sacred mountain, Mount Shatrunjay.
Pilgrims buy flowers to take as a symbol. Flowers represent the opening and spreading the fragrance. Devotees meditate on the meaning of the flowers, and they think that they must open their hearts and spread the fragrance of love around them.
One walks or is carried to the summit in about 2 hours. Hundreds of pilgrims move up and down the mountain all day long. Shatrunjaya is so sacred that even the birds and beasts are believed to attain salvation here. It was visited by the first Jaina, Adinath, and since then millions of Jain monks have come to meditate here. As the seekers move up the mountain, they meditate on the words of Muni's immortal song. May the sacred stream of amity flow forever in my heart. May my life be an offering at the feet of the virtuous. May my heart bleed at the sight of the wretched, the cruel, the poor. May I always be ready to show the way to the pathless wanderers of life. May the spirit of goodwill enter all hearts. May we sing in chorus the immortal song of brotherhood. The approach to the summit gives no inkling of the magnificent city of temples that is hidden atop behind the fortified walls.
चित्रभानुनी धर्म भावना हये सब मानव लावे
More than 700 temples are clustered within the enclosure, and each of the pilgrims has his own favorite shrine. I bow to the conqueror of inner enemies in order to conquer my own inner enemies. I bow to the perfect souls in order to perfect myself. I bow to masters who live what they teach. I bow to those who teach out of love and compassion. I bow to all souls in the universe, past and present, who live the spiritual life. These 5 benedictions will keep us from all harm. These are the most blessed of all benedictions. Worshippers wait in line to enter the favorite temple.
अंगय अंगय रंग भरी आखड़िया नंग भरी घंटड़ी रूपेरी रण काय रे मन काय नमणी नट कन्या तणा नखरानो नहीं पा मुग्ध थयो एक मानवी नाम इलाची कुमार
Tanam, Namo Siddhanam, Namo Ayaryanam, Namo Uvachhayanam, Namo Loe Sabba Sahunam.
Symbols made from rice help the devotee concentrate on his inner enemies, whether anger, pride, greed, or deceit, and visualize overcoming them, an ancient technique now becoming popular with modern.
चित्रभानुनी धर्म भावना हये सब मानव लावे, हये सब मानव लावे, वैर धैर्य ना पाप तजीने, मंगल गीतो गावे, मंगल गीत गावे, मैत्री भावनु पवित्र धर्मु मुझ भैया मावला करे,
human souls are on this quest, the journey into self, whether they know it or not. And who is the teacher? He or she who takes you to yourself, to God within you. For God is always with you. And this is known as upasana, means sit close to yourself, to that awareness which is at the center of your being.
Shri Parshvah Swasti Shri Vardhamana, Swasti Shri Vardhamana.